Hello everyone, my name is Swami Haridasanand and I have in this last year been doing sannyas here in Lucknow, India. And of those friends that I've told about this new journey that I'm on, they asked this one basic question, which is, what is sannyas? So I thought, why not create a video to try and explain what I have found sannyas to be, and hopefully give some clarity to something that's really quite vague and really not very well understood in the UK. So if you imagine a sannyasi, if you imagine in your mind what a sannyasi looks like, I have this idea, an image of a man meditating in a remote mountain or forest, trying to connect with God, connect with his soul. In the example of Mahatma Buddha comes to mind, where he's meditating underneath a fig tree, attains enlightenment, and then goes out and preaches. So sannyas is something that we're aware of, this idea of leaving worldly possessions, leaving worldly aspirations, and going off and exploring spiritual growth, going inwards, going through meditation. But the question that comes into mind is, why would somebody choose to do this? Why leave the world? And in my case, what confused people the most was that I had a very, very good life. I had a very successful job. I'd bought a house, I had a car, I had a very, very good set of friends. So it was surprising why I would choose to leave all that, to take this path essentially of not having things, almost the antithesis of the Western culture that we live in. But what I found when I took sannyas, when I came on this path, is that actually by having stuff, it doesn't necessarily bring happiness. Happiness is something that we all pursue, but how to obtain happiness is still a mystery. The Westerner would say that by obtaining wealth, status, position, you attain happiness. But the Hindu philosopher would teach that actually it's by renouncing these things, by detaching yourself from the world, that you obtain true happiness. This is a message that has been taught in our scriptures, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Ramayana, that detachment is the source of happiness, because attachment is what causes us pain. And I want to go through some of the things that you may have noticed or come across when you look at sannyas. If you did a Google, you would see various images of sannyasis who have tilaks, as I have here, of different patterns and shapes. Some have long hair and a beard, some have no hair, some have wear beads, wear different coloured garments. I'm wearing an orange garment, some wear red, some wear yellow, but generally those colours. And meditation is an important part of sannyas, because what you're trying to do is detach yourself from the world and try and go inwards, because the secret of happiness that our Hindu philosophers have taught us is that happiness does not lie in the world, it lies inside of us. That until we go inwards, there is no happiness, that the world cannot fulfill our happiness, because we always want more, we always need more, and there's this constant push to get more and more and more. But once you go inwards, once you connect with your soul, with God, then there is a peace, a calmness, which was the message that Mahatma Buddha went out and preached. Because if you look at Mahatma Buddha's story, his story is fascinating. He was a king, he had a beautiful wife, he had a child, he had a whole kingdom, all the luxuries that come with a kingdom. But when he went out once, and he saw four things. The first was he saw a man who'd aged. The first time he'd seen an old man. And he became aware that people age. The second is that he saw a man who was sick. He became aware that illness, sicknesses exist in the world. And the third is that he saw a man who was dead. who was being taken to his funeral and became aware of death. And in his mind, that question arose of, why am I here? This is a question that we've all asked ourselves in some ways, but never really pushed for the answer. But then he saw a saint, a Sanyasi, who was meditating underneath a tree, and saw that he was searching, looking for answers to the source of happiness, the meaning of life. And from those four things, he in the middle of the night left his kingdom, left all his wealth, his possessions, detached himself, and went out to discover what true happiness was, what the meaning of his life is. And even now we know the story of Mahatma Buddha because he went out in search of truth and found that truth and preached it out to the world. So Sanyasi becomes aware there's this detachment from the world, an internal awareness that actually what I'm searching for does not lie in the world. This detachment, this disinterest in the world is the first indication that there is something that we need that does not exist. That does not exist in physical possessions, does not exist in worldly relationships. And when we go and try and explore that, try and find that, Mahatma Buddha's story is fascinating because he did lots of attempts in trying to find answers. He hung upside down, he would fast for days on end, but it was only until he met somebody who could teach him how to connect with God, how to go inwards, how to meditate, that he was able to become the Mahatma Buddha we know now. And this is the story of all great sannyasis, and many who have even come to the UK, like Swami Vivekananda, who in 1893 went to Chicago at the World Conference of Religions. And there he preached. He sent a message out of what true Hinduism is. In his opening line, he said, "My brothers and sisters of America." And there was a huge applause. Everybody was clapping. And if you think about it, this is such a simple and not particularly incredible line. But when the news articles asked afterwards why there was so much applause, the main message that came out was that people were so caught up, so enraptured by his character, by the power behind his voice.
He taught that a man ought to live in this world like a lotus leaf, which grows in water but is never moistened by water. So a man ought to live in the world, his heart to God and his hands to work.
That is what sannyas is. Sannyas is connecting with yourself, with finding who you are, and using that power to go out and guide others, as Swami Vivekananda did, as Yogananda Paramahansa did, as Mahatma Buddha did, Saint Mahavir did. All these great sannyasi saints went out and connected firstly with themselves and then taught others how to connect. I have been lucky enough here in Anand Ashram in Lucknow to meet such a guru, such a perfect master who has obtained the heights of spirituality, who's guiding me on how to go inward, how to meditate, and where true happiness and peace lies. Because my experience of the Western philosophy is that by obtaining more wealth, you obtain certain level of comforts, but comforts don't bring happiness. In that case, you'd say that the richest person should be the happiest person, but that is not the case. Actually, some of the most successful people have lived very unhappy, unpeaceful lives. But when we find peace within ourselves, when we search inwards, then we can be happy. Then we can be happy anywhere we go. This is why this message of sannyas being for people who want to live in remote mountains or in forests does not apply, because when you want to connect with God, if you want to connect with your soul, you can do that anywhere if you get the right technique, if you know how to connect. And for that, you need a teacher, a guide. In sannyas, you learn how to connect inwards. You learn to see the realities of the world and not to be caught up in attachment. This is why I chose to leave my UK life and take Sanyasi. And over this year, I've learned a lot about what spirituality is, how to meditate, what kind of teacher is required on this path, and how this path can change you, what kind of things, what kind of abilities you obtain from this experience. And I feel like this is something I want to share out there with the world. So I will, over this channel medium, give as much as I can of my experiences, of what sannyasa is like, what spirituality is like, what our Hindu philosophy is like, and how that compares to Western and UK philosophy that I was brought up in, born and raised in the UK. So I hope you enjoyed, and obviously if you have any questions or have any interest in knowing more about sannyas, feel free to ask questions, comment, and obviously I'm focusing on producing more content, but if there's something that you particularly are intrigued about or unsure about when it comes to spirituality or sannyas, then obviously message and I can try and create content that applies and answers some of those questions. Again, thank you for taking the time to listen, and I wish you a blessed day.